Go to Fox News Alert right now. The government shutdown, it continues as we speak. Senate about to vote on 2 measures to end it. Standoff now in day 8. Speaker Mike Johnson blaming Democrats yet again, including my next guest, for failing to come around. First, the House Speaker from this hour.
Many Democrats in this chamber, by the way, I want to note, are going to receive paychecks this month, while the men and women of the U.S. Capitol Police who are protecting them will not. Here's one from New Hampshire local media. National parks caught in the crosshairs of government shutdown. Let me point out that both senators from New Hampshire, Senators Shaheen and Hassan, have repeatedly voted to keep the government closed.
Okay, well, that senator with me now, Jeanne Shaheen, Democrat of New Hampshire. Thank you for your time and good morning to you. Give our audience, give America some good news. Are you making progress?
Well, people are still talking to each other. My colleagues on both sides of the aisle, I think that's helpful. But you know, what we really need is for the president, the speaker, the leaders in the Senate, and the Democratic leader in the House to all sit down and talk. You can't reach a negotiated agreement if you're not willing to talk to each other. And I think it's disappointing that the speaker has had the House out. I think this is day 19 since the House has been back. If we're going to get an agreement, we all need to be working together. That's what I think allows us to move forward.
Okay, so let me ask you that. So what opens it up? Is it an agreement to talk, or is it full-on agreement to go ahead and keep the health care subsidies where they are?
I think we ought to be able to do both. We ought to be able to keep the government open. That's what the American people expect of us. And I think we ought to be able to help those people who are going to, about 4 million of whom are going to lose their health insurance if we don't address those tax credits that allow them to afford their health insurance. And another 24 million are going to see their costs rise dramatically, in most cases about double. And as we look at who's affected by that, we found out yesterday that it's going to be about 270,000 veterans who are going to lose their, who are going to be affected by a cut to those premium tax credits. We know that 76% of people who benefit from those credits live in states that Donald Trump won in the last election. So it's in everybody's interest to address this, because if we don't, people are going to lose their health insurance, and that's going to affect the entire healthcare system.
You make some great points, and I think Republicans are well aware of that. The president is too, and I think so too is Speaker Johnson. But when these were voted for the increase a couple years ago, all the Democrats voted for it, and in that legislation, I do believe there was a sunset clause. So you voted for something that eventually was going to end, and now you're saying it's going to end, and what are we going to do about it? So yeah, well, in other words, you saw the light in the train coming, right?
Sure, and when President Trump's big, beautiful, what he calls his big, beautiful bill, I think it was a real betrayal of the American people because of what it does to health care. But when that was being discussed this summer, no Democrats were allowed to participate in those discussions. That was passed with entirely Republican votes. So if we're going to reach an agreement, we need to be talking to each other. And when I was governor in New Hampshire, and there was an issue affecting our state, I went up to the Republican speaker's office and I said, you know, what can we agree to? How can we fix this? Because it's important to the people of New Hampshire. That's where we are now. And I don't think it's helpful when the Senator Thune and the speaker say to President Trump, don't talk to the Democrats.
Okay,
that's
so
not helpful.
On that note, and Senator Thune says really good things about you too. He calls you part of the reasonable caucus. And Mike Rounds from South Dakota calls you a good partner. You've mentioned it a couple times. Here was the president asked about talking with Democrats. Roll this.
Are you speaking with Democratic leaders? What kind of negotiations?
Well, I don't want to say that. I don't want to say that. But we are speaking with the Democrats, and some very good things could happen with respect to health care.
Would you make a deal with them on the ACA subsidies?
If we made the right deal, I'd make a deal.
I mean, there might be a little bit of movement there. I don't think a lot of people realize that some of these subsidies went to families making more than $500,000 a year. And I think when they hear that,
well,
they think, wow, what was that all about?
That's just
so
not
the
true.
question then is this.
94%.
Here's the question. Has the
Let
debate...
me respond, though, because you're not accurate in what you're saying.
No, I will give you a chance.
94%
I
of
will
people
give you
who
a
get
chance.
premium
I want to
tax
get to this
credits
question.
make less than $200,000
Does
a
this
year.
debate not show us that the Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, is no longer affordable given the current rules in America today? Your turn.
Well, first of all, let me go back to the president's comments. I think they were helpful in recognizing that this is an issue that affects everybody and we need to address it. Now, hopefully that means he will start talking to the leadership in both houses and we can reach an agreement that I think is very reasonable. The average salary of the person who gets those premium tax credits is $32,000 a year. As I said, 94% of people make less than $200,000 who are benefiting from those tax credits. And 56% of them live in districts that have Republican members of Congress.
I get it. Last
so it's
question.
in everybody's
I'm not gonna-
interest.
Why play stick 'em up now? Do you trust your
Because-
Republican colleagues who say good things about you?
The reason we need to address it now is because insurance companies are setting their rates now.
Yeah, I get it,
People
but you
are
got 3
getting
months to
those
negotiate it.
premiums. No. If we don't address it, November 1st is the opening of people enrolling in health insurance. If they're getting their rate increases now, this month, and if we don't address it, 1.5 million people are going to lose their health insurance if we don't do it until December. And it's going to cost the government $10 billion more, according to the Congressional Budget Office.
I'm out of time. I appreciate your time. Please come back. We'll get it done. Thank you, Senator.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.